Hello, everyone. My name is Susan Sparks, and I am one of the pastors at Madison Avenue Baptist Church. Happy Juneteenth, and I want to welcome you to our first Roundtable on Race. Madison Avenue Baptist Church stands squarely against all bigotry and hatred and racism, and we stand squarely in solidarity with our brothers and sisters of color in this fight for justice. And so we are launching this Roundtable on Race today, where each Friday we will post resources in order to encourage all of us, support all of us in our own anti-racism work. And so today we begin with a video from our own Adom Crew, chairperson of our Community Ministries Board. And I encourage you to lean in and listen carefully. Hear what Adom has to say in his story.
Hi everybody, how are you? My name is Adom Crew. I am a member here at Madison Avenue Baptist Church. I am the head of community ministries here at the church as well, and I'm so happy to be here with you today to be the first person to talk on our Roundtable of Race. I'm thankful that you guys have asked me to kind of share my perspective on things that are going on. Social inequalities, racial justice, things like that, and kind of just talk a little bit from my perspective and kind of give you an idea of things that I've experienced and hopefully be a talking point for us to kind of move forward as a congregation and thinking about these things. So I guess in starting, I will kind of start with my story. Some of you know some of this, some of you may not, but I'll kind of go from there. I grew up in Columbia, Maryland. Columbia, Maryland is a city, a suburb city, that's between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. In Maryland. And it is a suburban, somewhat affluent, middle-class neighborhood. I would say primarily white, but pretty good diversity. I had a lot of friends from different ethnicities, black, white, a really good Filipino friend I still have, so Asian, Latino. I had a good perspective and group of friends, and I learned a lot from all of them. So growing up, I think I was very lucky in that we were very diverse in our actions and our thoughts and people we got to hang out with. Even though it was a primarily white neighborhood, I think I was able to get different perspectives. I also think I played soccer, for those of you who don't know as well, and playing soccer and sports in general is the great equalizer. When you're playing a sport, it's all about what's your contribution to the team. You're only as good as that part, and you gotta pull your weight, you gotta work hard. You can't get away with doing certain things unless you're doing what you should be doing. And so I think by being in sports, it really helps my perspective on that kind of thing as well. So I had a pretty decent and normal childhood. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed being in Columbia. And I think, looking back at that, thinking about racial things in general, one of the first things that I kind of have in my head is we actually started going to group meetings for an organization called Jack and Jill. Some of you may know about it, but it's a national organization of just African American individuals in different communities. And this chapter in Columbia was one that we went to. We had meetings every couple months or so. And I had a good group of friends that I went to and hung out with there, and there was other people that I didn't really enjoy, like any group, right? But it felt a little forced at times too. I didn't know at first, from just growing up and hanging out with whoever was in the neighborhood, which that could be anybody, to these groups where it felt like we were hanging out with people from certain races, or from our race only. It seemed a little contrived, and I was like, well, I wonder why we're doing this. I wonder what's the importance of this. Is it something we need to do? Why are we doing it? And while that answer wasn't readily apparent right away, I think you kind of figure out over time as you have these different situations that come up and things that you need, and you need a community. Like we have a church community here, you needed that community, and I learned that growing up and going through some high school and college experiences I had. But as I kind of alluded to too, I had a good childhood, but I remember, besides that, first kind of racist events I would say were, we were, called names or things happened in high school, playing soccer. we had a really good soccer team, and we won 3 state championships. Probably should have won the 4th one, but we lost in the finals. And in one of those years in the playoffs, we went to a high school called Poolsville High School, and we were winning the game. And I remember at the game, we started getting these chants yelled at us that were, very racist in nature, and they started throwing bananas on the field and things like that, and just saying crazy stuff. And it was the first time we had a situation like that happen. It was crazy. So it really made a big impact in seeing that happen. It never happened before. I had some really good friends from high school who we actually had a pretty big falling out for a long while because they made some insensitive racist comments to me, and it hurt. And it's something that I didn't understand why they would say these things, but it happened, and it was something that was really difficult to deal with. Growing up in our high school too, it was a school that was called a magnet school for technology, and basically half the county would be allowed to go there based on their grades. And so with half the county being able to go, you actually had some individuals from parts of the county who weren't as open and a little more ignorant in their thinking, and they would make comments even at school to myself and my other African American friends. So these things happened in high school, and it just made you kind of think like, wow, what are people's perspective? Why do they do these things? And they hurt. And it was kind of my first eye-opening experiences. But other experiences I can easily mention. People would often say like, why do you speak in the manner you speak? Like, why don't you speak black? Which I always found to be ridiculous. I guess if you didn't speak in Ebonics, or you spoke in an educated manner that was not black, and that said to me all growing up, and even probably in college, which was crazy to me. I also played soccer, and soccer is a sport where black people don't play soccer. Like, what are you doing playing soccer? Where that's completely inaccurate too. Being a sport that is worldwide, highly influential in Africa, favorite sport there. It's crazy that people would think that, but unless you're playing basketball, there's these little things that people think about you and think they should happen. So, those things aren't as important, but it's just things that people say. And then going through dental school and coming to New York eventually, a lot more incidents happen. In Susan's sermon last week, she mentioned a few things of how there's things that white America doesn't even realize that black America has to deal with, and a few of those, kind of came to fruition for me. I remember, like my grandmother, as she unfortunately was going towards passing, she couldn't get the health care that she needed to because they thought she was an old African American lady who didn't deserve the same care as other individuals, and they treated us as such, and it was something that was really painful for my family. I can't tell you how many times during this pandemic, just walking around New York, I've been followed like in a CVS or a Walgreens or a drugstore because I'm black, and there's no other reason for it. I mean, I don't always wear a nicer shirt as I'm wearing now, but I am usually not, in bad clothes, and people will just follow you and just see what you're doing, and it gets to be annoying. I once had a backpack that no one else was checking their backpacks at a Kmart, the Kmart down at Astor Place, and no one else checking their backpacks, and they were like, "We need you to check your backpack, sir." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Check my backpack, there's nothing in it." So I check it, and I see someone with the same exact backpack who's white walking around the store, and I pointed out as I'm walking out, and there's nothing that the security guard could say except for the fact that we both knew why he was doing it and why he was in the wrong. So things like that happen. Things like that do give you inner strength, though, and it's things that make you have a voice and are stronger, but it's a dichotomy in a sense. It's a dichotomy in a sense for African Americans because you don't want to let those things kind of consume you. To be honest, I don't want to accept it, but I also don't want to constantly think about it. I think one of the things that has happened as a result of introspection over these last few weeks with all the protests and everything going on, and you bring up these situations that I've talked about, and by no means has my experience been bad. Most other African Americans have it much worse than I've had, but there are instances that come up in my daily life that happen, and they happen based on racial undertones, and you don't think about it as that, but it does happen, and so it's made me kind of realize it more. I'm more of a positive person and a realist in the same sense, but I like to move forward. I like to push forward. I don't want to dwell on these sort of things. And I know people who can be consumed by it, and it's something that people in the African American community have to deal with on a regular basis to make sure they're not consumed by it. So, it's something you don't want to allow to happen, but it's also something that can't consume you. It's a weird dichotomy. So, it's something, these are a few examples of some things that have happened to me. But, the next thing is just faith, and how are you able to get through things like that? And I can't imagine doing anything in life without faith at this point. I know there was a point in my journey where I didn't have as much faith as I had, so it's hard to kind of think about it, and I think that's probably why things like this may have affected me more. I may not be able to communicate with people and kind of, putting more faith in humans who are fallen and their thoughts of me than I should. It's something that if you don't have faith in God or whatever your faith is in, it makes things like this and just things in life really tough. I think having someone you can always count on, you can't really control what people say, you can't really control what people do. I don't know why people have the reactions and things that they do to you. You can't control your reaction, you can't control what you do, but you need someone to count on. And we're all fallen, we all make mistakes, and you have to realize that. And the only thing you can really count on is God's grace and His presence in your life. And when something happens, you gotta let Him deal with some of the stuff. And I think without having that purpose in your life and having that part of your life, it makes this stuff really tough. So without having the faith of God, it makes it really tough. Having a community, as I also spoke about too, is so important. You have to be able to communicate this stuff with people and talk about these situations. So having a church community, having a community of African American friends or even non-African American friends to be able to talk about, like, why did this happen with these group of people that I may not understand why they would have done that. I have a great group of Muslim friends I often talk about with things too, and I'm thankful for all these different groups that I've been able to cultivate over the years. But you need these groups and you need this communication. But most importantly, your faith in God is the most important thing. So I guess kind of to close, I would be remiss if I didn't say I know that this is probably coming out on Friday, June 19th, which is Juneteenth, and that is my parents' anniversary. So I'm really so thankful for them. We've known Juneteenth growing up for a long time because of this situation, but just because of them, they've always been activists. They were involved in the civil rights movement. They were involved in some walkouts on college campus, helping to integrate things. And my dad, being a historian, has kind of dedicated his life to these situations. He's always done stuff with African American history and the Underground Railroad, and he has always thought the importance of history is to kind of discuss it, but then have it as a catalyst for moving forward in the future. And he always wants to use the history of the past for us as a discussion point for us to move forward. So I'm thankful for him for teaching me that lesson. And I want to promote his work. I know we're going to try to have it as available for everyone, but if you go on the website for his museum, the National Museum of African American History and Culture, and the thing is called Talking About Race. So basically it is a way for us to kind of delve into race and talk about it and see how it affects us on a daily basis. I would really recommend that for everyone. But his work has always been so good, so I'm so thankful for my parents. But I'm thankful for my family too, and I'm looking for a better life for my daughter, who's going to be one very soon. And I'm so thankful for the dream that is partially being realized by Martin Luther King. I think he wanted us to walk hand in hand of all races to kind of move forward. And there's so far for us to go. But if you look at all these peaceful protests, you see people of all races, of all genders, fighting together to try to get these equalities. people reaching out to each other and having these kind of town halls and communications, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that the generation below me is kind of fighting the systemic norms that have been in society. They don't like what the establishment has given us, and I hope this kind of translates to Ava and Ava's generation, and she learns, how to be better as well. So I'm so thankful I was able to speak with you guys today, kind of give a little perspective on the roundtable, and always welcome to a further conversation, talk more with people about these sort of things. Always feel free to email me or give me a call if necessary. Thank you so much, and happy Juneteenth to everyone. Have a great day.